And we are live. Welcome back, everybody, to Behind the Tool Belt, episode 201. We have another kick ass guest. Stay tuned.
TC Backer. Roofing, siding, windows, gutter, solar. Roofing, siding, windows, gutter, solar. TC Backer.
Behind the Tool Belt is sponsored by Lead Scout. Find out more at leadscoutapp.com.
Is your lead flow down? Whether you're a company owner, office staff, salesperson, or installer, you're a roofing rock star. We help you get more leads with custom SEO, Google Ads, and a pro website.
TC Backer.
And we're back. What's that? Oh, Mike's talking. Sorry about that. And we were back. It sounded like it was in my headphones there for a second. Cool. Danny, what's up, Bull? How you doing, man?
Outstanding. How are you, Ty?
Fantastic. Welcome to Behind the Tool Belt episode. What is it? 201. I don't even know how to say that. 201 episode. The 201st 201st episode. Welcome to season 2, Danny. Or
Yeah,
Danny.
so I thought it was second season, first episode.
It is. We'll call it that. I like that. Second season, episode 1 of Behind the Tool Belt, man. So how's it going, man? Where are you coming from? Where are you at?
We are in Southwest Ohio.
Okay.
A little town called Cedarville is the headquarters.
Cool. So it's cold as hell out there.
It's gotten very cold. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they're calling for freezing temperatures tonight and tomorrow night here. We didn't get any snow yet. Jana did say it was like flurrying earlier, about an hour or two ago on her way home. And I know she's getting jacked up and excited for RoofCon. So I think she was out trying to find something because she lost a bunch of weight. Not that she needed to, but she lost like a lot. She's looking good. So I guess she was trying stuff on. So she was out shopping and doing
And
that.
finding a bathing suit where you live right now, I'm sure wasn't easy.
Yeah, for sure. For freaking sure. Yeah, and the stores are all carrying winter coats and long pants.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. So RoofCon next week, man. I can't wait. How you taking your team to RoofCon?
Yeah, I think there's the 17 of us total sales reps who are meeting certain goals or going from the construction company, and then consultants from the supplementing company who are both meeting certain goals, and length at the company was a factor also.
Oh, nice. Okay. Length at the company. All right, cool. So the consulting. So we know, I think most of us, but a lot of our viewers may not know this, but you have a roofing company, you have a consulting company, and partners with what was it, the DRNZ, National Drone Inspection
license plate up there that I never got to put on my truck, but DRNZ, me and one of my roofing buddies, Dylan, and then my CFO are all partners in that company. That's kind of taking a back burner as we focus on the consulting firm and the roofing company, but I think there's serious potential.
No doubt, man. No doubt. I totally understand that. So let's talk about a little bit about your consulting. What's that about? What are you consulting and who are you consulting?
Yeah. So predominantly our service is insurance claim supplements. Back when I was operating officer at another roofing company, we had that bottleneck all the time. Insurance claims just take a lot of time and a lot of skill to be able to process correctly. So in my time there, I just started taking on friends locally who needed help just writing their scopes or arguing building code or coming up with the arguments and emailing, and then of course the follow-up. So I started taking on clients while I was still working at that roofing company, and then just saw the need in the industry for a good supplementing company. I left my position there to do that full time, hired my brother who runs the company now. There's 15 of us at that company now that write across the country. And then it was a couple months after I left that a bunch of tornadoes hit and we started the construction company.
Oh, nice. Okay. So you actually started out in like the insurance adjusting part of this?
Not adjusting, just third party administrative. We write the scopes, we build the arguments, we submit it to the carriers, and then we do all the follow up necessary.
Okay. I had no idea that that's what you actually did prior to having a roofing business. I thought you had the roofing business first.
Nope.
And then
10 years
because,
experience in insurance claims, but
oh,
started
nice.
it at a roofing company in production, then had to learn the estimating when our public adjuster got arrested, and just have been doing it ever since.
That's not always good.
No.
But so the consulting thing, like, so what does that entail? So if a contractor would want to hire you, like what are they what are you offering them?
Yeah, so we like to be involved as soon as they get the first insurance scope, whether it's a repair or a denial or a full replacement. We want to look at it and see what's the maximum opportunity value that's missing. Basically, how much money is missing from this claim right now that the contractor should be paying. And sometimes we get involved, and sometimes we say, you guys could do this in-house, or you don't need us on this. But more often than not, there's something missing, and our average increase is 30 to 35% of the claims that we get involved in.
Okay. So, all right, because I do know from experience that is tough. Like you had mentioned earlier that that can definitely clog up the process. Whether it's your salespeople trying to figure it out, or if you have in-house people trying to figure out like the supplementing or the PWIs and all that crazy stuff that goes into it, because the insurance companies, I think a lot of times, either the person doesn't know who's adjusting the job, doesn't know roofing very well, because let's face it, insurance, there's a lot of facets when it comes to a house or whatever is being insured, right? So they may not necessarily know roofing. They might know just water remediation or whatever. That might be their forte, who knows, or whatever the process or purpose or whatever the problem is, whatever the problem might be. It's always best, I felt, to have a second set of eyes look at it. And basically that's what you're offering the contractor.
Yeah, exactly. And it's whether it's negligence or intentional oversight, there are a lot of poorly written scopes. And it's not just, I tell our clients all the time, we don't have a silver bullet. We're not doing anything magical. It's that our guys are solely focused on building codes, on compatible products, on proper construction, on Xactimate line items, even descriptions. And that is their sole focus every day, all day. So as soon as you, like you said, start putting your salesperson on it, or even if you have an in-house supplementing department, if you get hit by a storm, they're going to get overwhelmed very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I can't even imagine. I know down south, we opened up shop down there, I don't know, about 9 months ago. And 8 days after we opened up, we got hit with 2-inch hail down there, which is like the largest.
Good timing.
Yeah. It was a curse and a blessing at the same time. I don't know if anybody can relate to opening up, a second or third location. It's not always the smoothest transition, no matter how much you think you have your stuff together with the systems and processes and how easily duplicatable you think it is. But I feel like having a company like Zavodney Consulting come in and help and give a hand in that aspect of things, especially in a storm market where storms are more prone to happen, down south Ohio. I know there's a good many storms that happen out in, I guess, would you consider that the what mid,
Midwest.
yeah, the Midwest? Because I know Dylan Mullins is out that way and a couple other people. A lot of people are out in Ohio, actually. We should hold something out there. We
Yeah.
should have a big old something happen out in your neck of the woods with the amount of roofers out in that area. But no, I like that aspect of having, I guess, a third party. So walk us through this whole thing. Like, is it a subscription? Is it like, hey, I call up Daniel and say, hey man, I got this, like, take me through this whole process here.
Yeah, and to kind of touch on one final thing, we always say relationships over transactions. So I see Mark's in the chat. He's a relatively new client, and one of our consultants was actually able to recently hop on a Zoom call with he and his team to walk them through just a proper inspection. Here's the documentation you need in order to get the most approved. Here's the things we look for. So we're all about the relationship and building the companies, whether it's a small amount of files we get or it's huge volume. We want to better the industry and we want to show a better professionalism across the board. I wrote this book, one of the books that I wrote, just helping walk contractors. It's kind of reflecting, but walk contractors through how to set expectations with their team, how to set expectations with the homeowner for an insurance claims process. But as far as our clients, it's a case by case basis. Like some of our clients only use us when it's high volume because they do a lot in house. Some will send us everything. So it's, you need a claim, you send it to us and we'll take care of it.
Wow. That's amazing. So if somebody wanted your book, how can we get your book? I had no idea you wrote a book. I'm kind of really super impressed with that.
Well, it's a short one, intentionally short, because me as a roofer, I know that roofers have short attention spans. So this one can be read on a plane ride or a very short amount of time. You can just message me. I'll send you the PDF free. If you stop by our booth at RoofCon, we'll have plenty to give away. And then my other one is basically just written for homeowners to explain the roofing and insurance claims process. A lot of questions they might not know about their policy, about when money's released, the different parties involved.
Wow. No, I like that. I like that a lot. I had no idea you wrote a book, man. I'm glad you brought that up. So I'll be able to get a copy at RoofCon.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Good stuff. Good stuff. So at RoofCon, let's talk about RoofCon, man, because I know that's at the forefront of our team's mind right now. I think there's about 20 or 21 of us. My dad's actually coming with us and his girlfriend. So I'm really looking forward to that. I don't get to see my dad very often, but
Nice.
But what do you have going on at RoofCon?
So I think we were the very first diamond sponsor this year. So we'll have our own breakout room. I'll be doing a breakout session on building your team, effective ways to build your team, kind of how to lay the foundation with your values, with your alignment, with your goals, and then setting proper metrics and expectations, because I think one of the most important things is just proper expectations with the client, with your vendors, with your team. So I'll be doing a breakout there, and then we'll have a 20 by 20 booth. Basically right when you walk in. Part of it's going to be your typical standard, just Zavodney consulting with some giveaways. And then the other half, I'm going to keep it a surprise, but it's going to be pretty slick. And there'll be a cool way to celebrate for people who decide to work with us there.
Oh, nice. Okay. So you got a booth that you are set up for the consulting aspect of things. Okay, that's cool. Plus you guys got a breakout room.
Yep.
What day and time is your breakout? Do you know that yet?
I think it is the third day at either 10 or 11.
Okay. So that would be Friday? The second day, he said?
I think it's the third day.
Oh, the third day. Okay. So what? It starts Thursday, Friday. So that would be Saturday.
I think it's a Saturday, the second to last one on Saturday.
Okay. Cool. So it sounds like you have a sizable team, and you've been doing this. You've beat the majority percentage of contractors that doesn't always make it. And I guess one of my first questions would be, since you have a really awesome, from what, I've seen, I've watched your content, I've listened to other people talk about good stuff about you. And you're becoming, a local legend on Facebook nowadays. So What I guess one of my first questions would be, what does it take to lead an organization, especially two facets that you have right now? You have a roofing business and you have a consulting business.
Yeah, a lot of times I talk about the beginning, and my initial goal, like starting a business, is like, okay, revenue, how many locations, okay, profit margin, who do I need to make that happen? But it wasn't others focused. And after a very short amount of time, I realized that's not where fulfillment comes from. That's not where I'm going to find lasting impact. So within probably the first 6 to 8 months, it was a refocus on the people. And I would say what it takes to lead is first that is like to be others oriented. You can't be in it for yourself, or else that people are going to know, right? Like people are
Mhm.
smart and they're going to see where your priorities are very quickly. So being others focused, being very serious about people on my team winning. Like I want everybody in the company to be a better person than they were last year with better habits. I want them to be making more money. I want them to be growing in a position that where they find joy and fulfillment. And I believe that has had a big impact. And then I would say probably the next most or equally important is very early on being honest with myself that I had serious shortcomings like anyone else. But where are those gaps in my skill set, and filling those, like being real with the team that, hey, I'm weak in these areas and I need to fill these areas because I can't do everything, and I definitely can't do everything well. So
Mhm.
realizing that there were those gaps, and my wife, my CFO Tim, my brother Joe, my brother-in-law Jesse, who you met at the last Revolt retreat you were at, like they fill some serious gaps in my strengths that I don't have. So that transparency with myself allowed me to start searching for those people, and then that vulnerability with the team gives them permission to admit that I don't get this, or I don't understand this, or I think I'm failing in this area. They don't feel like, man, Daniel always has it together, he never admits fault. I definitely can't. It gives the team the ability to do that.
Mhm. No, I like that. I like how you touched on, vulnerability in your team, the importance of knowing your strengths and weaknesses. Um, so, what does vulnerability mean in context of leadership?
Man, that's a big question.
Mhm.
um I mean, it starts with, I think, admitting your faults, admitting when you mess up, and 100% taking ownership. Blaming other people for a process that I failed to implement, or something that I failed to do for myself, or set an example for, is just very bad leadership. Blaming it on a different manager or someone else when it always comes from the top, right? So admitting when you have ownership, and if someone is a repeat offender of something, or they're violating SOPs, that's a different story. But when those don't exist, or when I truly mess up, then admitting that quickly, and then not seeing it as a downfall, but as an opportunity for growth. That's a big thing. Is I'm being vulnerable in this area, I'm admitting my weakness here, but I don't see it as a big problem. This is an opportunity to find someone with strengths in this area. Or,
Mhm.
man, we found out that our production is having these issues. I don't see that as something to be really frustrated or angry about. I see that as a new problem to solve. And once we do, we'll be that much further ahead of our competition.
For sure. No, that's a great response to that question because that's a pretty deep question. And I think a lot of people, especially men, you know what I mean? And potentially a lot of women too, but the vulnerability part, um, exposing yourself like, okay, I'm weak in this area because I think we paint this picture. When you think of the word leader, that means, you envision some dude dressed in armor, holding a big sword, has his helmet with a big white horse, and he comes in and he cleans house. He knows all the answers. He can kick everybody's ass, blah, 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 blah. But, the benefits of leading, by vulnerability, it builds trust, right, with your team. It fosters open communication, and it it creates like a supportive work environment. So I got another question for you.
If I can,
I,
if I can kind of conclude that
yeah,
thought,
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah. Go for
also,
it. Keep going.
no, I don't mean to interrupt, but it
Not at
also
all. It's all
gives
about you, buddy.
you freedom and opportunity to embrace your strengths without feeling like you're being overly prideful. Because when you're transparent about your weaknesses, then when you say, guys, this is the area that I feel like I'm strong, trust me here, or let me take this, and then you get that complete confidence because people know you're going to be real when you're weak, so they expect that if you're claiming to be a strength area, then yeah, it must be.
For sure, for sure. It helps you identify too, a bridge that may need gapped, and more, whether it could be continuous education or whatever. We talk about that all the time. It's like we don't have to be smart in every single thing, right? And this is the thing too about good people, surrounding yourself around good people. Good people don't need managed, right? You hire them to be smart, allow them to do the smart shit that they do, right? And that embraces them, that encourages them, and that builds trust, right? Because I know a lot of people, and I've done it early on in my career. I've hired, really smart people, but yet I'm still trying to manage them. And what I've learned over time is really what they need is they need led, they need coached, they need encouraged, they need embraced, they need taught what to think and not how to think necessarily, and that's the position that we need to put those around us in, that they can make decisions on their own, and have that safe environment, that if there is a mistake made, that it becomes a learning experience and not a check mark, or whatever on their report card. They just got an F, right? Where it's very uncomfortable when they're called out in front of their teammates. But creating that environment where the team actually pulls together when there is an error, and errors in a roofing business can be multiple
Yeah.
things, and to watch a team, pull together during those times of, not even necessarily crisis, but yeah, sometimes a pandemic might hit, or whatever the case might be. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
that's kind of where the rubber meets the road. Can you share a personal experience where vulnerability has helped you as a leader?
I'm trying to think of a recent one. You should have prompted me with these questions ahead of time.
I'm kind of pulling them out of my ass here. I'm sorry.
No, that's good. We recently went through all of our values: growth, relationship, service, integrity, accountability, and ownership. And it's a couple of those: ownership, accountability, sometimes service. When we talk about service to each other rather than just the client, some of those can be uncomfortable because, I mean, even just the word accountability or discipline can sometimes bring feelings of discomfort because, I mean, it is uncomfortable to get called out. But in almost every one of those, when we went over the values, it was like one value per meeting. I was able to give an example of how I had violated that, apologize
Mhm.
to the team for it, and open up the discussion that way for now. How can we all improve in this area together? How have you guys, maybe not operated with these core values? And even that giving like, hey, I mess up too, allows everyone to say, I think I could improve in that value in this way.
Mhm. Yeah, great response. No, that's good. That's real good stuff. What are some examples of you like creating that safe space, I guess, that safe place, that work environment for vulnerability? Because let's face it, vulnerability isn't just on us, that's for everybody to
Right.
raise their hand and say, hey, I need help, or I'm struggling here, or I'm falling behind. Because we've had that in our organization where I think they felt like they were going to get in trouble. So they kept like shoving these papers every
Hmm.
day for a while. And then it was like they finally came clean. It was like, why didn't you speak up sooner? So give us an example of how you've created that safe environment.
Right. Well, as with a lot of problems, like, or even conflict, a lot of the heavy lifting and problem solving doesn't happen once it's here. It happens prior. A homeowner who has a messy yard won't be upset if they were told your yard's going to be messy. But once it's already messy, and if that conversation hasn't happened, then it's a lot bigger thing to solve. Same thing in that situation where you don't try to create that feeling when you're in the middle of conflict. You've already done the work by building a culture of trust where we're in this together. And I trust that when you hold me accountable, it's because we're all aligned with the same mission, the same goal, and that you're doing it for my benefit. And you're not just trying to be nice. Basically anything by Patrick Lencioni is a great resource for this conversation, but you're being kind to me by holding me accountable, because if you don't, then you're allowing me to continue hijacking or at least slowing down the growth or progress we've all committed to make.
Yeah, good point. Good point. That could be a whole nother topic right there. The bottleneck. We can create bottlenecks within the organization by holding back and not asking for help, or trying to take on too much and falling behind. And that's actually going to be my topic for the breakout. And I've been doing all I can do not to talk about it so much. And with doing the Facebook Live has not helped. And I've been dancing around this topic for like 38 freaking days now. But yeah, the bottleneck within the organization. And I know when we talked briefly via email, you were talking about the importance of a healthy organization, or organizational health, rather, I guess. You want to talk a little bit about that? Like what is it meant by organizational health?
Yeah, basically the foundation is exactly what we just talked about, that there has to be trust. There has to be, and I'm guilty of not giving a very clear vision because it's all in my mind and I can kind of see it in the future, but maybe I don't know all the pieces to get there, or maybe I assume people just see that as well, the same way I see it. But creating that clear vision. And when I was on Joe Hughes' podcast, he asked me a few questions about this. So it got me thinking about it more and painting the vision more clear at our retreat we had. But having that very clear vision, getting buy-in from the team that we are all going here. Okay, how do we have to operate to get there? These things have to be true. Who's responsible for making sure those things are true? Now we're going to hold each other accountable to make that happen. So the healthy organization starts with trust and a clear vision that this is where we're going. This is how we have to operate to get there. This is who we need on the team. And this is what we each have to be accountable for. And then it's not a set and forget, just like your values. They have to be continually reinforced. So the trust has to be reinforced. The accountability has to be always brought to light of who's responsible for what. So
Yeah.
it is a constant process.
It totally is. It definitely is. It's just like anything, a process or a system that you put in place 6 months ago may not work today. And that's one of the biggest things I hear a lot of people say. It's like, well, that's how we used to always, that's how it's always been done. Or, and that's the problem, I think, within a lot of organizations, is that they're stuck on what worked 3 years ago, which might not work tomorrow. You know what I mean? And you got to constantly evolve your systems and processes, and culture is a huge part in that, and communication and all those things. In a nutshell, organizational health refers to the overall well-being and effectiveness of an organization, including what I call the CCAs, right? And the CCAs is the culture, communication, and alignment. Like, we all have to align. Like the core values need to align, which we just recently revamped our core values. We used to have like 4 words as our core values, which we haven't launched yet to all of our locations. The Southeast location got to experience the new core values, but it was something that it's taken years to evolve into what it is today, right? Because what core values we had put in place 8 years ago, those words are just words, and they don't mean the same today as they did back then. I know that sounds kind of weird, but it's like the longer you do this, other things pop up, situations happen, good stuff, bad stuff, and the times change, the economies change, the atmosphere, customers, the age group generations of whether it's employees or people you're actually doing work for. So like the times evolve into different things, and that's a topic that I want to touch on a little bit. Is knowing your people is probably one of the biggest keys to a successful, healthy organization, because in our organization we have at least 4 generations of people, and we talk about this quite often, and you got to know what those generations are, right? So you got like Gen Z's, you got millennials, you got Gen Xers, and maybe even in some cases um baby boomers, right? I know Denny, I don't know if he's considered a baby boomer or not, but what gets him fired up or excited or motivated is something totally different than it would be for a millennial, right? Like Gen Xers are loyal. They're hard workers. They'll overwork themselves. They'll get themselves burnt out, and amongst other things. But I found that they're probably one of the most loyalist millennials. They got the best of both worlds, right? So they got Gen Xers as parents, and they got to experience the Gen Zers, right? But they're data driven. They like to be publicly acknowledged in front of their peers of like, hey, you did a great job. They're I may have already mentioned it's data driven, right? And then you got your Gen.
And us millennials really like to know that what we're doing has purpose beyond
Yes.
just the task.
Right. Exactly. For sure. And they love that. They love to, and I keep thinking of Chris Baker, like you can throw anything at him. And he just loves it. He just dives into it. He likes to figure it out. And he likes to know that it's helping the greater whole, right? Like he's not just stuck in a cubicle and what he does is just mindless, meaningless stuff. He likes to be really get his hands dirty and get in there and figure stuff out and improve stuff. And then you got your Gen Zers now that think about it. What do they had? They had COVID, right? They're used to isolation, more free spirited. It's not even about the money to them, really. It's about getting bored easily. So you got to continuously throw like small projects at them to keep them engaged. At least that's been from my experience. But knowing your people and not just the generations, but the actual individuals, because not saying that every single Gen Xer is like that, not saying every millennial is like that, not saying, every generation is like that or age groups, but you really got to get in there and find out, how they're doing, how's your home life, what's going on, and make sure that you're putting them in a position to succeed, because just because they're failing at one job, and this is something that we found out along the way too, just because they're not so good at something doesn't mean they're not good at something else. And we've also found that they're good at something that we had no idea that we actually even needed in our organization.
Right.
So we've allowed that openness a little bit for suggestions like, hey, have you guys ever tried it this way? Or have you ever thought of this? And having that and fostering that collaboration has been, I think, a driving force in our organization. Now, has it been perfect all times? Absolutely not. Has it gotten rough? Of course it has. There's a lot of people under that one roof in the congested area that we have now that we've outgrown 3 times. You know what I mean? So things, get heated sometimes because it's a family ran and organized company. Yeah, at this point in time, we're all family. And so we get the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the other thing that I've also noticed too, it's usually not a work-related issue. It's some kind of personal, family, home life situation that an individual will bring to the workplace. And that's why it's good to know your people, because you can identify those things right away. Like, hey, what's going on? You look tired today. Or I don't normally say that to a female because don't ever tell them that they look tired. I've done that already. But bring them in and talk to them and know that you're co-leaders, because, as an entrepreneur, we want to fix everything. At least for me, I want to run around and fix everything. Like, are you okay? Is everything all right? Because I'm a fixer. That's one of my shortcomings. And I tend to, go a little overboard on that at times. But when my back is turned, that message needs to be exactly the same when I'm not there. If I'm traveling or whatever the case might be, like when we're gone next week, unfortunately, there's a couple of us that had to stay back, and they know that they're doing what they're doing so we can do what we do. But that message has to be exactly the same when we're gone. A bunch of our co-leaders are going to Orlando, and a bunch of them have to stay back. Um, but that message has to be exactly the same, whether it's the messaging that needs to go to homeowners, the messaging that needs to go to their teammates. They need to know that there's somebody there that's going to lead the way, because let's face it, any clown can steer the ship, but it takes a real leader to navigate the course, and that takes a group of us, of leaders, and that's why I call them co-leaders, because that's exactly what they are. And I'm grateful for the people that we've been able to place within the organization, because whatever I dreamed for, and we talk about this too, I dreamed, or prayed for things 5 years ago. I'm living that life today because of those I've surrounded myself with, and because of the life, and I'm living the best life that I've ever lived. I need to reciprocate that to those that are around me. Why can't we make sure that they're not living the best life that they ever have, whether it was, the home that they wanted, their bills are paid, they're having babies and kids, they're buying cars, they're going on vacations. And we're one that's real big too, at least in the office aspect of things. Out in the production side of things, we're pretty tight on the schedule of things, but within the office atmosphere, it's like we don't have a clock in and clock out. If somebody comes in late, and that's one of those things too, where the culture is, it's like, hey, what happened? Is everything okay? But not just that, because of the culture being a healthy culture, they're going to pick up that whatever may have fell through the cracks or whatever needed to be done. They know that they can stay later, they can work from home to get it done.
Right.
There just hasn't been like that I don't know, that scolding that when I grew up, I felt like I was always constantly being screamed at for something. Anyhow.
Yeah, that's super cool. And I think you touched on something. I don't think it matters what generation. I think our people need to know that they are actual people. And those simple questions of how's the kids, knowing their kids' names, knowing their spouses' names, knowing kind of what's going on. You don't need to get in everyone's personal business, but that they're valued beyond just whatever their number for success is within the company.
For sure. And I love that. Creating, and I think you touched on it in our conversation earlier, was creating a culture that your team wants to help grow, right? Creating that atmosphere. So how does your organizational culture impact employee satisfaction and performance?
Say that question again.
Let me see if I can remember what it was. How does your organizational culture impact employee satisfaction and performance?
So we've already touched on a few, is
Mhm.
having like trust. That I think everyone in my company, you could ask, does Daniel want what's best for you? And I think probably every single one of them would say, yeah, Daniel wants what's best for me in business and in my personal life. So that's one, is that you have to care about your people and they have to trust that you care about them. Just that is going to cause them to talk about it, because unfortunately it is uncommon. This place that I'm working at, the boss actually cares. And I hate that term, the boss. Daniel, one of the leaders, cares about me. He's, working hard to make sure I've got this training. He's trying to make sure I'm growing. He's giving me avenues to make more money next year with the same amount of work. So the trust that I have their best interest in mind is huge. The vision casting, that we are going places, that it's not, just come here and work till you die and not much is going to change. That excitement, like, I mean, our company group chat is just going on all the time. And there's all these, go team, huge momentum, great motivator, all these, comments and reactions, because people see that not only is there a really good vision of where we're going, we have the momentum, we've done it in years to come, and Lord willing, it's going to continue to happen. And just that excitement that we're on this this really exciting ride, and we're all on a team rowing in the same direction and making big things happen. People are going to talk about it. People are going to be excited about it. Those are two big ones.
Mm-hmm.
And just making sure that your team knows you're looking for people. Just that reinforcement, because that'll spur them to think of their friends and family who might be looking for somewhere when you're looking for a position, or maybe I think I'm going to hire for a position here in a couple months. Hey guys, we're going to be looking for this person. If you know anyone, spread the word. And that's happened without me even prompting, but making sure they know who you're looking for will help them attract those people also.
For sure. And that's the thing, especially early on, trying to find the right people, for the seats on the bus was probably one of my biggest pain points. And you touched on it. I'm going to circle back to the earlier conversation where, when we first did this, it was more for like status, right? Like we had bills to pay, we got mouths to feed.
Survival.
Yeah.
You have to get out of survival mode before you can do anything else.
Right. And I think a lot of organizations or smaller organizations, they stay put in that survival mode, and it's about them and providing for themselves and lining pockets. And I've talked about, the goals that we had set early on was, to put everybody on the books. And that might sound crazy, but with workers' comp and unemployment and stuff like that, to me at that time, that was a big deal. Back in 2011 is when that went down. And what that did was that planted a seed for me to be able to offer health insurance, right? Like these people are going to be healthy. They get hurt or they get a cold. They got to go to the doctors. That helped to boost morale too. And then several years later, shortly after that, I thought about how cool would it be if somebody could actually retire from here. But that took a little bit longer to come up with like a retirement plan, like a 401k or an IRA Roth or something like that. But we ended up getting in bed with a local federal credit union that turned us on to a bank called Voya. And we turned everybody on at that point in time. We gave everybody enough advancement to put that extra advancement into the 401k.
Wow.
And to be in a position like that, to do that. And it's not even about the money, right? But that's just cool little perks. And I always looked at that like as just a tip, because we're all in this together, and I'm so good at my job that the person next to me has a job, gets to have a job, right? And they're so good at their job that person gets to have a job. And when you can kind of create a culture like that and build a company that people, want to come work for, and create a culture people want to be a part of, and have an organization that other organizations want to be like, right? And that's where like people start getting attracted, like whether it's coworkers, friends, or family that wants to come work for you, because everybody's screaming, not necessarily me screaming from the rooftops, hey, come work for us, we're such a great company. We don't have to say that. And I'm not saying that to boost my own ego or anything like that, because I'll be honest with you, Glenn and Baker and Ippy and the other people have become, and Lauren and Zach, and the list goes on, because everybody is a leader within the organization. Sam and Ashley, Jocelyn, Stacy, Kim. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I hate when I start naming names because you're
going to forget someone, right?
Yes. But they're the ones out telling their friends, not me. They're the ones attracting people to come work for us. And the one thing that has helped us build the culture, you just did your first company retreat. We haven't gotten to that point yet, so I'm kind of jealous that you've done a company retreat. Christ, I can't even imagine how that shit show would go down for us. But I'll have to pick your brain on that when we get down in Orlando.
Yeah.
And we can talk about that in a little bit, but it's like we get involved with a lot of community stuff and some pretty big stuff, right? Like food drives and diaper drives. And we have what's called the 21 Turkey Salute coming up November 22nd. And it boosts those types of things, like boost morale and team spirit. Participating in the community activities like that requires teamwork, collaboration, coordination, activity participation, from the whole entire team, because the events are that big. Like, we shut down everything. Production's coming over, the sales is coming over, all admins coming over, to help us set up, 25 turkey pots. I call them turkey pots, but they're burners, deep fryers. And last year we ended up doing like 80 turkeys, fed 800 plates of food to people.
Wow.
And it was just, that takes like the entire company to do that, and to complete that and to accomplish that, with the team. We couldn't do something like that without the team. And it's like Christmas morning for all of us out there, and the collaborative effort, with that comes with that, like, boosts the morale so much, and it creates a sense of unity among, the team members. And when everyone's working towards a common goal, it strengthens the team spirit and reinforces a positive company culture. And that's probably one of the best and greatest things that we've ever done, was having like this huge impact on our local community. Like, I'm all down with, like, impacting people over in Uganda. I love that real far distance stuff, but it's like, I think sometimes, and especially for me, I can get lost in the sauce and try to impact all these little things all around us. And that's what we started doing years ago. We were doing little things all over the county and all over the state and all over the country. And it was like, I felt like we all felt like we weren't making an impact on anything because we were spreading ourselves so thin. So I would say about 4, maybe 5 years ago, probably 5 years ago, we started to discuss about, well, let's find a facility or an organization that we can like focus on. And we were introduced to a gentleman. We call him Pastor Joel. Pastor Joel, big shout out to him, because he is a freaking pillar of our community. He is a true leader. We got turned on to him, had a conversation with him during COVID, about this crazy, wild idea that we wanted to come up with called the 21 Turkey Salute, because where that name came from was because the Guinness Book of World Records was 20 turkeys being fried at the same exact time. So we needed to we were going to do some ridiculous amount, but I was like, let's just do one over the record. So then next year, all we got to do is one more over ours. So we, thank God, that we decided to do that. Where every other organization, homeless shelters, women's shelters, churches, all turned us down, Pastor Joel did not hesitate to say, I love it. I love it. So we rented this tent. We're all masked up and wearing gloves and hand sanitizer all over the place, and had water hand washing stations, and kind of did this thing on the street where people could just walk up and get Thanksgiving dinner from us. And halfway through it, of course, we got the cameras on it because we had to send the photos or the film to the Guinness Book of World Records with everybody with like a number 1, number 2, number 3, so on and so forth. So we did all that. We had the turkeys dropped, and Pastor Joel pulled me off to the side, and he whispers in my ear, he said, "You're going to do this next year here, aren't you?" And I looked at him, I said, absolutely. And it was nerve wracking because we had 20 plus propane bottles shooting flames out the ends of them through these turkey fryers right underneath this tent. And we had safety precautions. We didn't tell the city we were doing this. We didn't call the fire department. We didn't call the police station. Well, lo and behold, here comes the police commissioner. He comes over. He loves it. He gets a plate of food. About an hour after that, the mayor of York City comes down and pulls me off to the side, and he walks me down the sidewalk down to the end of the street. And I'm like, oh shit, dude, I'm going to jail. And we had an equipter. We get down to the end of the street, and I had an equipter parked out on the sidewalk with big banners on it hanging from it, so people knew we were tucked back in this alleyway. And he says, I love this. He said, the only thing I need you to do is pull this piece of equipment back up off the street a little bit so that the handicapped people can get up onto the sidewalk. I was like, no problem. No problem. Yes, done. And he said, just let us know and we'll let you close the whole street down. So moving forward, they allowed us to shut the whole block down in York City. Not to prolong this story here. Vic's giving me shit already about my stories dragging out a little too long, but I'll figure out how
that's
to
really
condense
good
that someday. But that's it. Yeah, it was. But that pulling together during such a weird time in everybody's life at that time, has just propelled our culture to a whole nother level. And not just that, like they made a committee, like they got a committee. Tam called the city. Like everyone's got like a job now. What used to take us 8 hours to set up takes us probably like an hour or two maybe to set up. And like within 4 hours, we're done. We fed 800 people. We're out. The team gets to go home and spend the evening with their family. And then we all get back to work that following Monday.
Wow. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's super cool. And that you can't put a price on what that does to the team and not that that's your goal. Obviously you're trying to have impact, but that type of stuff really does bring the team together. And your comment about it's not you saying, come work here, I'm great to work for. It's your team. It's the equivalent of paying for Google ads versus a personal referral. And you're never going to compare the two because a personal referral is going to do business with you, immediately. So I love the other people attracting. And I've kind of always, when I hear people saying, I just can't find people,
Mm-hmm.
again, like you said, not to brag, like there are people waiting until we have openings to come and work here because people like to work here so much.
Mm-hmm. For sure. For sure. It is about the team today. It's all about the team. I mean, that's what it's about. And it's like the impact, if you can remove yourself, and that's the crazy thing about whether you want to talk about leadership, legacy, any of it, right? And any of that, all of the catchphrases and tag words that everybody likes to use today. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people make it about themselves, and any of those words, all of the cool words that everybody's using today, unfortunately has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Right. Like your legacy has nothing to do with you. It really has nothing to do with you. And what's crazy about legacy, it's kind of like there's like a paradox or a catch 22, however you want to look at it, especially if you got an ego, right? There's a catch 22 to it. There may be people that have come through our organization, right? That most of them stay. Fortunately, we don't have a high turnover rate, but there are some that may go. Either case, it doesn't matter. When they come in and they stick around long enough, it's like they're not the same person they were when they came here. And let's say they do leave. I hope that they go on to make $100 million and impact other people's lives with the toolbox that we've created for them while they were here. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, I know pride's not a good word to use, but like we pride ourselves on, the continuous growth, whether it be personally, financially, professionally. There's continuous growth amongst us, and really that starts at the top, right? Like if you're leading by example and you're continuously pushing yourself outside your comfort zone to learn new things, that's contagious, right? Because people don't necessarily learn by like being told, but they kind of catch it. They pick up that vibe that you're putting down, and they're watching what you're doing continuously on a daily basis. And that's one of the things that we've done early on. It's like, I used to have to be the first one at the office and the last one to leave. Well, that's not the case anymore, because I am not getting up any earlier than I do today to be the first one in the office. Like I will not be there at 4:30. Right. Then I used to be there, 4 o'clock. 4:30, the latest. Right now, it's like I'm not doing that anymore. Right now, I do get there at a decent hour, but the office is open. When I get there, the office is open and it's buzzing. It's like a freaking airport in there. And but they picked that up by watching, by watching the ones that came before them. That was just the standard, right? That's just the standard, and that's the normal. And that's what you got to do. You got to lead by example. Is huge.
Yeah, I love that. And when you do have to confront something, you have a lot more moral authority when you're setting the example, rather than if you're being lazy and checking out early and people don't see you growing. When you promote the idea that they should be, you kind of lose the credibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And that's the thing. All eyes are on you most of the time. You know what I mean? And what's kind of cool is when you surround yourself around a bunch of co-leaders, the microscope's not so far up your butt anymore either. but there's a time where you need to be 100%, and there are times that you can be at 70%. And usually those days where I'm not feeling so, so hot or uncomfortable or tired, fortunately, I don't have to go out there and be at 100%. I can actually close my door today and be at my 70% and deal with the things that need to be dealt with on a higher level to make sure that pipeline is full, making sure our relationships are strong. And you touched on something earlier too about like your partnerships and stuff like that. And one of the catchphrases I like to use is that your network is your net worth. The partnerships that we've built over the years, I can name probably 2 people maybe that we don't do work for today that we've started out in business with. So we do probably, let's say 98% of the people that we've done work for going back 15 years ago, we still do work for today. Whether it's investment firms, whether it's realtors, homeowners,
Yeah.
all of those things. And that says a lot about the company, not me at this point in time. And it hasn't been for a long time. It says a lot about your team, your culture, and the company in general. The trust, the transparency, fixing things immediately when things do go wrong, because let's not kid ourselves. Shit happens, right? But it's how you deal with it. You know what I mean? And at
Yep.
at the end of it, that's the lasting impression, right? But things happen, things go wrong. Yes, sir. What else? What else you got there, Daniel? That you'd like to touch on? Oh, touch on your team retreat a little bit. Let's talk about
Okay.
that. I'm
Yeah.
intrigued.
So I'll explain what we did, but with the preempting that I didn't come up with this all myself. I talked to a lot of people who have done retreats
Mm-hmm.
and just got their feedback on how to make the most valuable use of the time. So
Mm-hmm.
split them into 3 teams. Each team had some people from production, some people from sales, some people from the consulting firm. And they all left from 3 different predetermined locations from a van. They knew where they were going, but they didn't know what was going to be involved. In their van, they had a closed packet and a closed box. So they were instructed to pick a team leader, pick a team name, and then they could open up their packet. And that was the activity on the drive, meant to engage everyone on the team. It was basically like a series of questions, building code questions, contract questions, insurance claims questions, some funny ones, some trick ones. So they were all, they all got a chance to shine in their different areas of strength, answering the questions to get them talking. A lot of people didn't know, salespeople didn't know people from the consulting firm, vice versa. So they all got a chance to interact on the drive. And one of the questions was to create a material list for this, supposedly imaginary structure. But when they got there, the structure was we had 3 4-square cabins for this camp. It's a Christian camp that I used to go to when I was little. And there were cabins that needed to be done. So when they got there, they actually got the material that they ordered. And then each team had to actually install a roof, start to finish, tear off and install all the products, which most had not done start to finish. Production is probably the closest, but even they are, predominantly repairs and site management, whereas, our sub crews do a majority of the full installs. So they actually got to put the roof on start to finish, which was pretty cool to see. Just how they work together, the respect they got for people who are doing this every day, the instruction that production had to give on order of products and how things are to be installed, the attitude. It was really cool to see. I was expecting some like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, this is a retreat. Why am I up on this roof tearing the shingles off and picking up nails? But by the end of it, and it took a lot longer than I thought, that was probably my biggest lesson, is a lot more time than you think things will take, because, when you're orchestrating 30 people to do things they don't normally do, then it's going to take longer than you think. Some of the tools I didn't I only had a couple of hammers per team, so they were going slower than they probably would have if I had extra hammers or extra ladders. So I learned a lot of lessons also, but by the end of it, it was incredible to start hearing the feedback, even though it took longer than we thought, and I had to rearrange some stuff. So that was day one. And the next morning we got to talk about the takeaways of what we learned. And there was a lot of, I was really encouraged to see how well people taught each other, how well people kept working, how people worked together, how people who weren't used to climbing on roofs were still doing what they could, how these people were keeping the area clean, the communication, the way some of the shortcomings on my part actually led to some other takeaways of, we had to get creative because we didn't have more tools. We had to work together more. We had to think ahead. We had to distribute resources more efficiently. So the kind of final takeaway, tying it all together, was, why did we do it? Why did we do it? And it was, okay, I was educational. It was good team building, but really, why did we do it? And we had our main crew there the same day, and we were able to, in one day, do $20,000 worth of work for this camp that's doing amazing things in the lives of kids and families every single summer. And they've got leaking roofs that if they allocate money there, then they're not allocating it towards their ministries and towards their better facilities for more people and better accommodations. So that was the kind of takeaway, is a lot of times day to day, it's, oh man, sales is doing this. It's annoying. Oh man, production isn't following these special instructions. Oh man, this is taking longer. The supplier's messing up. The crew didn't do the counter flashing right. And it's like, why are we doing this? There's a much bigger purpose than the color of the drip edge. It is an actual impact on a homeowner that without us might have ended up with a greedy contractor or wouldn't have got the full replacement. How are we serving each other? Because we all want to serve the homeowner. We all want them to be happy and give us referrals at the end of the job. But we often forget that our value of service also accounts to how we treat each other. So that was another big takeaway, that how we treat each other really, really matters, because those are the lasting relationships. We're going to be working together for, some of us already 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, I believe a lot of us will be working together for the next several decades. So that the way we serve each other is paramount. And then this kind of the rest of the second day was spent going over a brief company history and values that have got us here: God's blessing, stewardship, sacrifice, others focused, and kind of tying each part of our history back to one of those, whether it was sacrifice for me and my wife, and how we remain debt free by making serious sacrifice. And we own all of our real estate and all of our trucks because we've taken modest salaries, keeping stewardship in the forefront. We don't just treat the company account as an endless bank account. We actually treasure what the company has, and we take care of the vehicles, and we don't waste material, because that's what's gotten us here. And how, we all hear the saying, what got you here won't get you there. Well, there is some truth to, you have to keep a hold of the valuable parts that have got you here. And yeah, we have to evolve, we have to level up, but we can't dismiss the little things that have played a big role into bringing us here. So to reinforce what got us here, what we need to hold. And then the final formal exercise was, departments now break up, and we showed a organizational chart that I see the end of 2024, the company's looking like, with all of those values taken into account. And then all the departments broke up, and their assignment was, what are you guys going to do to get us to this vision of December 2024? So they all broke up from their teams and went to departments: sales, production, administration, and consulting. And then we all came back together, and they presented what they were going to do, whether it was changes or improvements or innovations or refinements, what they were going to do to get us to that vision by the end of 2024.
Wow, that's crazy.
It was amazing. And I did like a Google form feedback, and the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Like it was really cool to hear some of the responses. Some things that I could have done better and things that I need to be more clear on, definitely to improve on the next one. But it was really cool, and I look forward to implementing a lot of those lessons.
Yeah, I liked how you touched on. I had like 15 questions while you were talking, but I didn't.
Sorry, I
I
should
think
have paused.
that's okay. That's okay. But I like how you touched on, what got us here is not going to keep us here, type of thing. And I guess elaborate a little more on that. Like, how did you articulate that message? Because I currently ran into a situation where it was like, what got us here, right? Sometimes you do have to stick to the basics, right? Because if you stick with the basics, you don't ever have to go back to them. But now there's a fine line there, and there's probably
Right.
a huge argument about that. But in a lot of cases, and like you said, right, taking care of the vehicles, right, making sure the materials get returned, making sure you're not over ordering materials, or the lack of material, which is going to cost the company more money, or whatever the case might be. How did you articulate that message? Like, were you doing like a PowerPoint presentation and then like printing it out and like, here, stick this in your folder, and I need you to read this once a week because this is what we're going to do? Like, walk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, so it was a presentation where it was, most of the slides were a like photo history of where we came from, like the first iterations of our logo, and then
Love
my
that.
departure from my last company, and a focus on, with each section of the history, I would do a series of slides with photos and kind of talking about, here's what was happening at this point. Here's, and then at the end of that, it may be broken up into like 6-second sections. Okay. At the end of that, the lesson is sacrifice. Like time that me and my wife didn't get with our kids because we were painting the office that we couldn't afford to pay someone to do because we didn't have any money. The first truck we got that was already rusty when we got it, because that was what we could afford, and that what we could pay for cash, and that we committed to be debt free at the beginning of our company. So that was a sacrifice. And then I talked about, it will take some sacrifice in times of big storm, or the customer's roof is leaking that we just installed. Nobody wants to go up there and tarp it in the middle of a rain, but if there was sacrifice involved to provide a job, and like you said, healthcare and a good culture that we have now, and it's not going to go away. There will need to be sacrifice moving forward. So I didn't give any handout, but it was kind of broken up to here's our history in this point. Here's the lesson that we learned, or the value that we had to internalize. And it's one that, must continue for us to continue on this trajectory.
Yeah, that leads me to my next question. How do you plan on continuing that message, right? Especially for those that have been there for a while, and we all, I think, experience complacement. And then the other thing is for those new coming to the organization, what's your plans moving forward to keep reiterating that message?
Yeah, that's a super good question. And I think it'll be a learning experience, because you can never, not that you can never, but it's hard to have your exact same mindset come from someone else. So one of the big feedbacks I got from the retreat was, man, that really, like, I knew the company history, but seeing it from that light really reinforced a lot for me. And to see what has gone into building this has, is going to change how I operate going forward. So I think the company retreats, whether it's annually or semi-annually, I think those will play a big factor. And then just continual alignment with the leadership team, that it's coming from more people than me, because I think we all know that peer accountability is as effective, if not more effective, than coming from me. So, hey, that's not how we operate here. That's not how we got here. That's not how we're going to get to the next level. So those two things is big whole company events, and doing what I can to just reinforce that's how we operate with the leaders I interact with, and believe that they're going to, convey that.
Love that. I love the whole experience that you just shared with us, man. That was good stuff. I'm definitely going to have to get with you and get the curriculum, or whatever, the outlines, the good, the bad, the ugly, and what you may do differently, because even if it was just like a week or a day, one day, little 8-hour event, I'd like to do something like that probably sooner than later, man. That was good stuff. One of the things I was thinking about is two things. Did the entire company come? And if so, or maybe some people couldn't make it, was there significant others with them?
No significant others. Everyone possible who could come did. It was 30 out of 35. And I think if I had planned a little bit further in advance, we could have got it. And next year, I mean, everyone who didn't go conveyed that they really wish they could have been there.
Mm-hmm.
But the goal was to get everyone there. And one day I think could be effective, but there is just something about staying the night, getting up together, you're making coffee together. Man, I'm sore from yesterday. That was like, I can't believe Daniel did that to us, like feeling each other's pain. And like, I don't know, there's just something about staying together. It's different than showing up and then all leaving.
Yeah. What a great experience. What a great culture building experience, valuable learning and the growth experience within your organization. I can't even imagine what that has done. I always felt like we did things a little bit differently, especially with our community activities and the roofs that we put on. We put on quite a few. And we use mostly the team to do that, so people get to experience what it's like to have a tear off shovel in their hand,
right?
90-degree weather, right? But that sounds like a step above the things that we do. So definitely, I definitely want to talk to you more about that, and maybe we'll take a little baby step in that direction, do a little something on a smaller scale, because I just got a sneaky suspicion significant others would become an issue for a couple people, just because I've heard that before, like, I can't go to RoofCon because my wife can't make it, or something, whatever I've heard over the years.
Yeah.
So maybe we can do something a little smaller, on a smaller scale, not so far away, or whatever the case might be. But before we get off here, is there anything else that you want to touch on? Anything at RoofCon, or any golden nuggets that you want to end this with?
I mean, I'd just say anyone who does insurance claims, at least come and talk to us. We do some, like I said, training for your team. Even if you don't need our services, we're all about growth in the industry and the relationships, not the transactions. Golden nuggets, man, I think we touched on most of what I had.
Mm-hmm. It was good. This was a good episode, man. This was good. I can't wait to see you down in RoofCon next week. We're getting down a day or two early. We're hoping that we can actually start setting up around Tuesday.
Yeah.
I know last year.
I would like that too.
Yeah. They were in there the day before the setup day. We went over just to check it out to see where we were going, and there it was. The union was in there busting shit out. So we were like, yo, go get the van. Let's do this. But looking forward to that. I know it's going to be a lot of work, but it's also a lot of fun, and the impact. I mean, we're all doing this. At least, I know what cloth you're cut from, and I know you're doing this for impact, right? None of this is about us. We don't even do this podcast because of us, because trust me, I'd rather be in bed right now if it was about me. But we suit up, we show up, and we remove self from self, and we put others in front of us. And that's why we're doing what we do. But before we get off here, I don't want to forget this, but we've recently, we're doing the, what is it? You can listen to us on basically all your favorite platforms now. iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, all the popular ones at least. So like, love, subscribe, follow us, do all that good stuff. Check us out, because this is definitely a banger of an episode. I think anyone traveling to work tomorrow morning that wants to listen or even watch this, I know trying to watch it on Facebook can be annoying sometimes because you can't play it in the background, when you're trying to do something else on your phone. So that's why we're doing the YouTube thing now, Google Play, iTunes, and Spotify. So check us out on those cool platforms. And thank you so much, Daniel, for taking the time away from your family and your team and your loved ones to spend an hour and 13 minutes yapping about all the good stuff that we love doing and the improvements that we're trying to do in our personal, professional lives, and not just that, but most importantly, everybody else that's in our lives.
Yeah,
So,
Ty, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So next week we will be in the Sunshine State of Florida, Orlando, Orange County Convention Center, Wednesday night, coming live from Orlando. So check us out for episode 202, season 2, episode
That's
2.
right.
All right. Thank you guys for